Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of object reference, and really what this is just like, it's a study of the difference between the way that primitive variables behave as compared to object variables. So in order to get this started, I'm just going to create first of all, I've created an object reference class. I've got a main method, and let's just scroll these off the screen so that nobody gets distracted by it. You really don't have to pay any attention to that. So what I want to do is I want to start by creating a couple primitive variables. And what I'm going to do here is the second variable that I create is going to be assigned to be first variable that I create. And the idea is that the way that primitive data works is that these 4 bytes that represent the int contain the actual bytes that represent the value of 4. So that when I copy the bytes from var1 onto the bytes for var2, we end up with 2 different 4s. Okay, the bytes, I'm copying them over, so it's like there's a 4 here and there's a 4 here. So if I then go and change one of them, I'll take the var1 and I'll plus it. If I print these up, you'll see them, I'm going to print them both up. What's going to happen is they're going to be different. Okay, var1 is going to be incremented up to 5, but var2, since it was a copy of the 4, is still going to be at 4. Yep, sure enough, the first one is a 5 and the second one is a 4, and that's what we expected to see. So the idea is when you got primitive data, you copy the values over. Now, object data isn't that different, but there are some implications of a difference. Let's say we take some object that we've studied before. Let's say it's a J-frame, okay? So here I've created a J-frame, frame 1, and its title is going to be original title. If I create another J-frame variable, which I'm going to call frame 2, and I point it at frame 1, this behaves a little differently than the primitive data did up here. See, what happens is objects are so well, they're first of all bigger in size. They've got lots of attributes, and those attributes can change in size, and there's a little bit more of unpredictability. So the way that it works is objects are created in RAM in a specific location, and the variable stores the location in RAM where you can find the actual data. So object variables are locations, or I always call them memory addresses. All right. So when I copy object variables, it's the memory address that's getting copied. The frame 1 memory address is copied onto frame 2, so both of these variables reference the exact same object. You've got copies of the address, but you have the same object there, right? If you have 2 different sticky notes that both have the address of your house, there's still only one house. It's just that both sticky notes will get somebody there. So let's print up the original titles, then we'll make a change, and then we'll print up the titles again. Okay, so notice what I've done here. I've got this same code I did up here. The JFrame2 variable has the JFrame1 memory address copied on top of it, and I've created a little new line. Remember, /n just creates a new line to space stuff out. So it's going to say title1, and then I'm going to go into the frame1 variable and get the title associated with that object, and then I'm going to go into, we have a new line, title2. I'm going to go into the frame2 variable and get the title associated with that line. Now, we should understand that that's the exact same object, so this is a little redundant, but it's supposed to serve a purpose when we get down here. I'm only going into the frame1 variable and setting the title to something different. I'm just going to change the title to changed. And then I'm going to reprint up, it's basically the same 2 lines, I just copied and pasted. I'm going to print up the frame1 variable's title, and I'm going to print up the frame2 variable's title. And you'll see that these both refer to the exact same object. Right? So title, oops, I used the wrong kind of slash. That was really silly. Remember to use uncomfortable slash. You got to reach up. That's embarrassing. But the title 1 is original title, title 2 is original title, and then I only changed one, but both of them report as if they've been changed. Here, I should change these. My bad. Yeah, so that's one example. Let me give you another example. We did some code with the mystery messenger object that I made a little while ago. So I've created 3 mystery messenger variables. The first 2 point to unique and distinct mystery messenger objects. Right? We're going to create a brand new object here, and we're going to create a brand new object there. Since they're both new, they are different locations in memory. However, the messenger 3 variable is just going to receive the 1s and 0s that represent the location of mystery messenger 2, and so they are essentially pointing to the exact same object in memory. Okay, so what I'm doing here is, as I showed you before, I've got 2 mystery messenger variables that point to distinct mystery messenger objects, but then the 3rd variable points to the 2nd one. I'm just going to print up the number of messages represented by the variables in 1, 2, and 3, just so you get a baseline. And then notice I'm going into the 3 different variables, 1, 2, and 3. I'm adding a message, just a boring message into each one, and then I'm going to reprint up the number of messages in the 1, 2, and 3 variables. Now, let's just talk about what should happen, right? Messenger 1 points to a distinct object, messenger 2 points to a distinct object, but 3 points to the same object that messenger 2 points to. So these 2 lines of code right here are going to add their messages to the exact same object. So I believe the default number of messages that I made these things to have is 10. So it's going to be, here we're going to print out 10, 10, 10. Then we're going to add 1 to the first object, so that'll be 11. And then we're going to add 2 more to the second object, so it's going to be 12 and 12. Sure enough. So we've got 10, 10, 10 are the original number of messages in each of those. The first one had 1 new message added to it, and the second object, which was pointed to by both the 2 variable and the 3 variable, had 2 messages added to it, and therefore the size of that object is 12. So you have to just, the upshot of all this is that you have to understand that there is a difference between object variables and the objects themselves. The object variables point to an object, and when you copy object variables onto one another, keep in mind that you are merely copying the location of the object, not the object data itself. We'll also talk a lot about this in class tomorrow. This is actually sometimes easier to teach when you can do diagrams and draw on the board, and so it'll be easier to communicate then.